What's up, guys? Progressive Insider presents Kirk Report, Don Ford. I am Don Ford. This is my live stream. I promise I've been doing this since before everyone got locked in their houses, so I should not be shamed for still doing this. Now, whether or not I should be shamed for doing this for my own reasons, we can discuss that in another show. But if you're seeing this, you're probably either just jumping in live or you're seeing the replay. Either way, thank you for opening up the video. If you want to like Progressive Insider, we're doing a lot of live shows over there. So I'm going to do some promos while everyone is jumping in. So we're basically doing a morning show. We're doing an afternoon show. We're covering the news, talking other things. It's actually, I think people are going to be more interested in our group shows than they are in just watching my show. But here we are doing my show. It's 4:12 in the p.m. And I'm not even sure I have to do this right now, to be honest with you. I'm not even sure it's necessary. But things have been really crazy lately, like super, super crazy. And they just keep, crazy train just keeps moving on. So I feel like if you stop and you don't talk about it for a couple of minutes, you miss out on some really important stuff. I think there's something really important going on that we all need to talk about, which I don't even fully understand the gravity of yet, but it seems really, really important. But it's the basically EPA is making a rule on the science. Basically, EPA is proposing a broad science restriction in midst of coronavirus pandemic. And this is an article by Michael Halpern of the Union of Concerned Scientists. Search for Healthy Planet and Safer World. It's a very interesting group. I just did an interview today with Mustafa Santiago Ali, who is a board member of this group. We were talking about COVID-19. That video will be out in a couple of days. But this thing is moving forward right now to limit the EPA's making limits on the government's ability to use current or different types of sciences in public health protection decisions and scientific assessments. So those are kind of important. Those are things we kind of need. So there's this move going on. So this is going to happen on the 15th. There's an event, so that you have time right now to call and say something. I mean, I'm not even sure what you say about this. It seems like they're trying to move forward. They're trying to act like you have a moment to do something, which, I mean, I suppose that means we should do something. But it seems like this is a time when we should be leaning on science, not pushing away from it. So another interview with Dr. Burdett again, and we're going to be discussing this issue in a great detail because this is a real problem. I think this is we need to really be leaning on science, not walking away from science. So these restrictions are a major problem. We need to make sure these sort of, because we are seeing some governments that are just they're abandoning all kinds of things that are super important right now. They're abandoning just protect. They're talking about getting rid of the like wildlife acts and getting rid of so many environmental protections. Because you remember, environmental protections aren't really. I mean, yes, we're protecting the environment, but they're protecting your water, they're protecting your air, they're protecting your ground, they're protecting your earth, they're protecting you, they're protecting your immune system, they're protecting the thing that make you able to fight this virus. So when we talk about the EPA restrictions being rolled back or not enforced, or the limits of science when it involves how we're going to be handling this crisis, yeah, I see a real problem. I see a real problem. So that's just we got to be super mindful of that. Also today, I don't know if you guys saw this. I hope you didn't because it's horrifying to watch. But Trump, at the very end of a terrible, just a car wreck of a press conference, he went on a little bit of a rant about how we should have voter ID and that everyone should have their voter ID on a picture and the thing. I'm like, yeah, I mean, the government should pay for all of it and it should be free. Maybe, but no, we shouldn't have voter ID at all. We should all have paper ballots. And that's because the question was about rotating everything over to vote by mail, which, of course, is why Trump jumped to this voter ID conversation, because the real conversation is about getting everyone on vote by mail for November, because Trump knows if that happens, he's going to get wiped out. In the same way that Biden and the neoliberals know that if this happens for the primary, that Biden could get wiped out, because the whole not voting thing apparently is a big issue. And I do think that, and I said this on my last show, I think that the legitimacy of right now, Iowa's in this pile too, technically for its own reasons, but Florida, Illinois, and Arizona, all three of those should be cut in half. They shouldn't be sat at all. Those elections were practically illegitimate, and I really believe that. So those guys, that shouldn't even be allowed. I don't know how to make that happen. I know you can do. Well, I know kind of how to make it happen, but it's kind of a long shot on that particular one unless the campaign backs it. But like the Bernie campaign should be trying to figure that out because as elections right now, just a few minutes ago, I don't know where it is if it's changed in the past 20 minutes, but there was also Wisconsin, the governor went to the state assembly and asked them to delay because basically it's on the state assembly. Whenever they say it's a constitutional issue, it means that the governor doesn't have the power to change it, and the health I always want to say health minister, but the whoever's in charge of public health in different states use different titles, I think, for different places. That person usually has something from the pandemic rules, and it really depends how long they've been a state for. Because the longer they've been a state, the more likely they are to have laws to deal with the Spanish flu. So it's sort of funny. Or the spread of TB. That was a big one where a lot of these things come. TB was really bad at one point. So that's what the laws that shut Ohio down. Yeah, Ohio shut down over that. I believe it was a TB related law. So, it had nothing to do that in the wording, but that's when the law was made. Same thing is probably going to end up being true. I assume the election's going to be canceled in person, and then they're going to extend the deadline. And I'm thinking they're going to extend the deadline for a while, and they're going to send everyone ballots because there's this whole like democracy as a threat. Also, Democrats are going to realize that if they do get this vote by mail thing organized, then they're going to win elections because the Republicans depress turnout, and that's how they win. That's what gerrymandering is all about. They have to gerrymander, and then they have to depress turnout, and then they have the thing. And the problem is that when the Democrats play along with that, then you end up with like 20% turnouts, and then progressives can win because we come out and actually just like connect with all these people that I've been connected with in 2 generations, and that's how Virginia did so well. So, that's how that's how this works. That's why the Democrats are kind of like it doesn't make sense to want low voter turnout because that ultimately hurts their chances. Higher voter turnout, the higher the person, the like more likely a Democrat wins. Because the Democrats are there. Even when you look at an independent, most independents are like, well, I'm not going to go vote. But if you send them a ballot, they'll fucking vote. Yeah, they will. They might be a little bitter about it, but they'll do it. And that's the thing. It's like people will take the voting more seriously or less not seriously. I don't know. If they just have it kind of like brought to their doorstep. And that's Republicans the last thing they want. So that's why Trump went on this tirade today about voter ID and how everyone needed a voter ID, which is illegal. It's a poll tax, and you can't do that. Just so we're all clear. Okay, so we're going to go from horrifying in D.C. to horrifying in New York City. There are 2 interesting things happening in New York right now that is kind of mind-boggling when we talk about. I forgot to start a watch party. It's kind of mind-boggling when you talk about what is going on there. But, we talk about, they always say, like, oh, well, we need capitalism because we don't want bread lines and we don't want the government seizing stuff. Right? That's what it is. They always show those pictures of Venezuela, which is actually, there's some really bad pictures coming from there right now. We're not going to get into that later. But it does have a lot to do with why Canada banned all outdoor fires. So, on that note, let me go back. Got that going. Okay, so, how was I saying? So, the banned outdoor fires, thing. Totally got distracted. Come back to me 1 second. We're going to New York. We are dealing with, right here. I actually have it up here. Hang on a second. It's a lot. It's hard to even keep track of how much. Oh, right. Okay. New York has 2 things going on. They always show us these pictures of bread lines and all the other stuff. Just had to find my lines. They find these bread lines and they find all these other, terrible pictures of socialism in action. But what is happening in New York? New York has opened up a program where they are going to feed any New Yorker that needs food. Okay. So New York City is to provide free meals to anyone who needs food. Now, at first, on the surface, we're like, that sounds good. That sounds like something that needs to happen. But what that is technically is technically a bread line. Now, you can't we got to be real careful about this because, on one essence, we should be offering food to anyone who needs it under any circumstance. We should not need a worldwide contagion to start giving people normal basic necessities. That should be a standard. However, when you do it under these circumstances, it means something different. So this is the beginning of the bread lines. On the same note, let's see, I got it right here. There's another bit going on that Cuomo came out and said, well, I just know it. I don't even need to find an article. Cuomo came out and said that they are going to start using the National Guard to seizing ventilators and other types of medical equipment that is not being used in upstate New York and bring it down to the city where it's badly needed. The crazy thing about that is that is seizing that is seizing material. That is seizing the public materials. So that's basically the two things. These are the two things. Capitalism is in collapse, and they always say these things are going to happen if we have socialism, but when it collapses. But the truth is that these are the things that happen when anything collapses. It's not necessarily, I mean, capitalism is total shit, and this is a terrible mess, but the point is that when collapse happens, collapse looks the same no matter what it is. It's just a matter of what causes a collapse and how we get there. And so in this particular instance, capitalism is collapsing because the working class can't work and there's not enough materials because we've been using austerity. Austerity being that we have not been putting money into... It's like you're playing a game of SimCity and you didn't put enough money into doctors or medical or whatever. It's pretty actual simple concept. It's a major bracket in every city building video game in the history of video games. So talking about doctor, I mean, in war games we have doctors. You always have to have healers in World of Warcraft. Like it's not complicated. Your healers are important. The tank is great, but where's the healer? And that's sort of the whole thing. We have put all of our worldwide, our countrywide raid group is too many tanks and not enough healers, which in this actually relays very well metaphorically. This is where we talk about, well, what do we need to do? Well, this is kind of more of a long-term issue, but the point I'm trying to make here is that we're seeing the threats that are said about socialism. Not that I'm proposing socialism. I'm actually not a socialist, just for the record. I'm a democratic socialist, but it's more on that social democrat, but not really. It's what I promote. Me personally, I'm more of like a social anarchist. I don't even say like a sociopath right now, a socio-anarchist. So I believe in social currency, but I think kind of rules suck. So, but I do find them fascinating, and that's why if I had to do like a political system, it's democratic socialism, because if you have to pick something, there you go. So, there you go, little get to know me. So we're in a really challenging times, and I think that as we move away from this, talking about all that, leaving that other stuff behind, we need to get ready to ask about what we want moving out of this. What do we want? And I forgot my last point on that whole thing I was saying is all that stuff is bullshit, so we should move forward. And I'm not a socialist, but the thing. So, what do we want? There's a couple what do we want. There's the priorities for the next coronavirus relief package, which Bernie Sanders just put out a detailed response. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to drop it in the comments and right here in just 1 second. But it's really detailed, as usual, no surprise. It is, I do wish that we kind of had a little bit less platform. Like, I think there was a write-up that if you went to the website and read the whole thing, it just felt like extensions of the platform. And I feel like that's not the best move, even though it looks very nice. I think making these things like, healthcare for all and drop the for all now, just say make sure healthcare is taken care of because that becomes healthcare for all. It's sort of like some people are turned off by our talking points. And right now we're going to get what we want. So stop calling it our talking point right now and just call it what it does, and then we'll get everyone on board. This is kind of where we are. And I feel like I said to the movement a long time ago that the biggest thing we had to conquer was not the DNC, even though it is a huge issue. It's not any of these other problems. The real thing to conquer was our own vanity. And what I meant by that is that we had to look at situations like me saying we need to conquer our own vanity and not be offended by it. That's what we mean by vanity. You're offended that I may have negatively given you a negative image because the vanity of the movement gets in the way of its own growth. And that's pretty much an extension of everything we're trying to do. So I think, changing some wording on here or there isn't going to really change our ultimate message of what we're trying to do. And we have to decide what sacrifices we're going to make if you actually want to get Bernie to be the nominee. Because I think there's a doorway open that has been left open by what would only be called an act of God under all legal terminology. So, like, literally, this is called an act of God. We looked it up. This is a virus, plague, some bunch of other things that are in there. So there's this like doorway open, and I think that part of that is a little time to negotiate with the people that stand against us and figuring out what they need. We don't have to win them all over. We just have to win some of them over. We don't need none of them. If we say, oh, we don't need them, that's the same thing they're saying to us. So I don't see how, if we're saying the same thing back to them, it makes us any better than them. We need some of them, because whoever gets some of the other side is going to end up with the majority. And right now, I was talking about the millionaire tax, some of those other things, but I'm just saying we need to figure out what it is that only serves so much purpose so that we can make sure that, if it's not needed, it's not there. And at the same time, if it's just going to stand in the way of us getting the nomination, then we need to think about that. So, but right now, we don't need to think about is the priorities in this next relief package are really, really well put together. It's addressing the employment crisis, providing immediate financial relief. He's proposing $2,000 a month, every person in the country, direct deposit, guaranteed sick pay, hazard pay for essential workers and frontline workers, guaranteeing health care for all, which would, I think Trump is already talking about that. And I think in the press conference, something's going to get overshadowed, is that Trump was talking about having all this money go through to pay for people who get sick, and they weren't sure if they were going to have it be something that worked for for everyone or for other illnesses, or what was going to go on with that. There wasn't a lot of certainty with it, so they're still trying to figure out how that's all going to work. But it's basically a march towards healthcare for all. Like, it is an actual thing that is actually going on, that is actually real, that Trump accidentally did. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work yet, because nobody knows how it's going to work yet. But, excuse me, can you hang on 1 second? Rosie, do you mind? Sorry, I could only take so much of it. It's so loud. So anyways, Trump accidentally pushed for Medicare for all, but through treating people that are corona patients and helping them make sure that they're not, because he had this whole 30 million people. We can't have people not getting treated for coronavirus. We cannot treat people. We cannot not treat people. We can't. And there's already been like maybe 1 or 2 instances of something like that happening. So that was pretty much the end of the conversation. It needed to get changed. So we'll see how that actually works out. But it's the step the right direction, which is even more reason for Democrats to seriously step up and get Bernie in this nomination spot, because Trump is going to become a Bernie clone. As soon as Bernie is out of this race, Trump is just going to adopt everything Bernie does. He's going to give everyone health care. He's going to keep the payments rolling. He's going to do the whole thing. He's going to do it. He's just going to wait, because they don't want Biden to think to do it first. But Biden's not thinking, and they're neoliberal. I think right now that the neoliberals are more like, Trump is just a jerk. He's a terrible CEO. He does austerity like he's a con man. It's a whole other thing. But austerity is totally different. It is more like psychological, and they kind of know what they're doing. He's more like, I don't like that thing. The austerity is like, yeah, but we don't need that. Any of it. Anything but paying me. So it's slightly different. So this is where we even talk about Biden is slightly more conservative than, well, not even slightly, he's considerably more conservative than Trump now. Where if Bernie dropped out, Trump would take all his things. Biden wouldn't be able to pick them up. Trump would just plow through everything. Wouldn't matter who they put. They could put anyone in there. Wouldn't matter. Trump will plow through that, and then he'll go down as like being a good president, which is, I think, the worst part of all of it, because the bar is so low, mostly because his first term said it's so low. But once he realizes that money can go anywhere and it doesn't matter, the whole game is off. Like, once they realize they can just like really truly raid the Fed, like that's when we're like into serious, like, oh yeah, win the Senate back, totally, we'll get him out. Oh boy. So also very sad news. I know a lot of people aren't gonna, but one of the Kennedy granddaughters died. Very sad. Robert F. Kennedy's granddaughter died with her son, um, in a canoe accident. I don't care, what you feel about the Kennedy family. It's still very sad. It just happened. But if in other upsetting news, and I'm going to go back to Bernie's thing in one moment, but Biden came out today and said that he is confident Bernie Sanders' supporters will fall in line, and I'm not sure that he actually said it. Yeah, here we go. He told donors, because apparently that's the only people who get to talk to Biden. Uh, if I'm the nominee, I'm confident Bernie will push his supporters to support me, just as I would if it were reversed. He's poured his heart and soul into this. He's made some significant changes in American politics that have been positive. Well, that's nice. So, yeah, I don't really have too much more to say about that. I think Biden is freaking delusional. I think that even if Bernie got out, and that's the other thing. Here's the problem right there. Well, because what did he just say? He said I think Bernie would get out and endorse me and push. So what? It's not going to do anything, and Bernie knows that. Bernie's like, I don't control these people. I'm not with them. They're with me, and that's really kind of part of the problem. Or it's the other way around, right? He's not. It's the other way around. So point being is that Bernie knows he doesn't have any control over endorsements unless people have the same platform. Like, it's easy to endorse somebody with the same platform. We actually look at people's platforms if they have a platform to look at. There's a really funny article that I read about Joe Biden's healthcare plan, and someone said this was supposed to be an article about Joe Biden's healthcare plan, but I went to his website and it turned out he didn't have a plan for healthcare, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense, and he hasn't changed anything. I mean, maybe they've released something about how to deal with COVID-19, but the stuff that I've been seeing is ridiculous. It's totally, totally ridiculous. It can't even be taken seriously. So, but it has to be because here we are. It's actually worse than like we feign interest for Trump because he's president. And we're like, having to feign interest for Biden is just so much worse. Not to mention, also it's coming out that senators are all fighting over Hunter Biden's probe. I'm still a little confused about which probe at this point, and there's some big meeting coming up that everyone's freaking out about where they're going to dig into some of his background, and we know he did the thing they're probing into. We know he did it. It's not like no one knows. So it's just a matter of whether or not it's legal and whether or not it's enforceable. And it does feel like this is the beginning of Biden's Benghazi, right? So Biden gets back into office. They immediately have a thing they're taking him to, and he's just in there the whole time. Now, the neoliberals don't care. They want that. They like that tie-up because it's hard to get reforms when everyone's focused on that. It makes him have to cave. He basically becomes a Republican president because he's already a Republican by modern standards. And so when they get him to push him just a little bit more right, he's basically doing their bidding constantly. And they are still going to run him through every little detail of everything that ever happened. So this is why it's important right now to really talk about this thing that Bernie put together, or his team put together, providing emergency aid to states and cities, suspending monthly payments. This is such an important aim right now amongst all the things that we're talking about. And that's the reason why I interrupted it and came back around to it. Because this is a really clear vision of how we deal with the crisis immediately. Cancel all student loan payments. This actually says suspend monthly payments very broadly. Suspend monthly expenses like rent, mortgage payments, medical debt, and consumer debt collection for 4 months. Cancel all student loan payments for the duration of this crisis. Place an immediate moratorium on evictions, foreclosures, and utility shutoffs. No one should lose their home during this crisis, and everyone must have access to clean water, electricity, heat, and air conditioning. And we must restore utility services to any customers who have had their utility shut off. I could not agree more. These things that absolutely are critical if we're going to fight this virus and fight it together. And people ask, how long are we going to have to do this for? Well, as long as people are sick, we're going to have to do this. And we're still going to have to get it under control. We're still going to have to figure out a bunch of stuff. We're still going to have to keep certain people quarantined. It's still going to be a thing, especially when we're talking about it being on the air and not everyone having masks and do the mask work and can our healthcare system. And still, even if you have good healthcare and even if everything goes right and even if you treat your symptoms and even if everything goes perfect, you can still have a high chance of mortality in certain circumstances. And there are always grandma and grandpa, and that we are seeing a lot of it happen. So I really cannot stress enough how How long are we gonna have to do this for? Until everybody gets it right. And it's the easiest dance move ever. Everyone just sits in their house by themselves. Oh my God. Okay, so Elizabeth, you're making a really good point. That's why one of the things in Bernie's, one of the things in the plan. Let's see if I can find it. It says something about that. She says in my comments, but it cannot all come due at the end of the crisis at one time. What you're referring to is known as a balloon payment. And a balloon payment, like many who have had a mortgage during the crisis will know, is that you had a lower mortgage for like a year or 2 years, and then at the end of that time, you had to pay a big bubble payment or mortgage payment, and they called it the balloon payment because it blew up and then it exploded when it got too big. Because no one can pay, the 100,000 balloon payment. You got to take out a secondary loan to pay off the balloon payment, which you may not be, credible for because you probably never should have gotten that housing loan in the first place. So that was why the collapse happened. Essentially, is because they'd set up all these balloon payments to get everyone into houses, and it wasn't like realistic shock. So what you're talking about is that exact same circumstance where we don't pay our bills for 3 months and then we owe it all at once. That's a problem. So what you want to do is you still want to kind of, if you have money, you still want to keep track of your bills. You still want to keep track of everything, because here's the deal. Even if the government comes in and pays it all, they're not going to just like wipe well, they could actually. That might be the easiest way to do it. Is just like pay off the entire utility in areas. That actually would be pretty smart. Yeah, no, that would be a good smart. That would be smart because like utilities are pretty monopolized. Like we have Department of Water and Power here. It sounds like it's a corporation, apparently. Department of Water and Power is its own thing. The gas company is its own thing. You can't get gas or water and power from anyone else here. I think there's one other power company when you get away from like Los Angeles. But the thing is if like the federal government came in and just paid off everyone's water and power and gas bills, I mean, that would be the single best way to manage it. It would have the least amount of fraud. The money would go directly into the system, and that money does actually go to pay for more water and power. Like we do pay for power, we do pay for water, we do pay for all these things. I don't really know what the cost ratio is on it. I don't know very much about it. I do know we have to get water. Obviously, there's a lot of complicated things going on there. I'll interview some experts. I'll figure it out. But let's see what else we got here. So the great thing about this though is it is only a plan for the immediate crisis. Bernie's plan is immediate crisis. So we have to now start talking about what we want coming out of the crisis, right? So this is a plan for like 4 or 5 months. This would cover everything. In the end, we would be pushing for like debt forgiveness completely, resetting debt limits. We would need a jobs plan. We would need consistent UBI. We would need health care for everyone. We would need food assistance. I mean, it's all the basics and some sort of stipend for transportation, whether it be owning a car, vehicle, depending on what you did. We would have to figure all this out because I have an idea. And I think you'll like this idea. We had this idea in a meeting earlier today, and we all had a good laugh over it. No, it might have been in the live. It might have been in our last live stream. We had the idea. Jimmy had it, and me and her. We kind of came with this thing together, and so I wanted to call it the Main Street Boot Bill because we always talk about picking people up by their bootstraps. Go get up by your bootstraps, son. And for some reason, you always say it in a southern accent. It's like Texas. But the point is that we don't have bootstraps. There is no bootstraps in America. Everyone talks about pick yourself up by your bootstraps, get to work, son, and that's not really an actual option. So we're looking at needing to basically restart the economy. And we had this opportunity where we sort of realized that, like, money's not really real, and resources aren't really an issue. So, I mean, they are to a degree. Certain resources are an issue. Let's not kid ourselves. There's still demand and whatnot, but we'll get there in a second. So, the point is that we need bootstraps. We need guaranteed health care. We need some form of basic UBI. We need a form of housing protection. We need a jobs protection. We need to be able to, whatever you need, you should be able to have housing, even if it's like Section 8, it still would be better than being on the streets. You should have some kind of housing available to you that you could be in or out of, whatever. You could stay there, get into a better place. You'd have some sort of job available to you so you could get into some kind of workforce somewhere, something, doing something. And we should be basically just be creating jobs and making, not like bridges to nowhere, obviously. I mean, we should have some intelligent design how we're doing it. We should have food assistance so people can have at least basic food, and we should have higher quality food and more restrictions on quality of food because we need healthy. We can't have people with like blood inflammation because they're eating crappy food all the time that if they don't know it's the thing, if like good food is cheaper, people will eat good food. We just have to change the mentality, the psychology. That's why Cookie Monster only eat cookies sometimes. It's like real, like you know what I mean. You got to do the other things. And yes, that was my Cookie Monster impression. So you need I kind of lost track. I was saying something about transportation, and then we need to have. The point is that we need to have bootstraps. We need to have these things that people can rely on when they have nothing else, and then you can build up to get out of that and get into a better position. But the base, not the base that we give people, is zero. It's like go live on the street. Maybe you'll find a, Actually, we took away grocery carts because they put locks on all the wheels. I mean, you can still find them. I'm not like going looking, but I see them out. The point is that we need bootstraps, and we need a Main Street bootstrap bill. We need something that makes people understand this is what you give people. And I think calling it something like the bootstrap bill makes sense because it's nothing like a progressive uses. It's speaking directly to Republicans. It will make them be like, yeah, we do need that. Why don't we have that? At the very least, we can start telling people to go pick themselves up by their bootstraps, and they can be like, oh, yeah, right, I have those. I mean, wouldn't that be so much better than saying that to you, and then you're like, that was condescending. We all know that's not real. And we should make it a real thing. I think we should offer those protections and securities. We can't go around calling ourselves the richest country on the planet, especially when money's all made up anyways, when we're doing that. When we're not, it's just, excuse me, when we're not doing that, is what I meant to say. So, I don't know anyone in Torrance. It's not really a good time. So, so that's kind of what we were thinking about today. We're talking about that. So that is a real going 30 minutes already. Wow. Okay, so like same. Let's see. We got some levels here. Cancel student debt, housing for all, Green New Deal, Medicare for all, but Congress and free all the immigrants in detention centers. Yeah, that's yeah. Let's deal with that. We need to actually do that anyways because we're starting to get COVID patients there, and they're actually sending videos out, and it's pretty it's disturbing. It's really disturbing that we're letting that go on and nothing's being done about it. Even today, Trump dodged questions twice about whether or not undocumented immigrants would be covered in the medical care bill so that everyone would be covered during this crisis. And I don't know. He dodged the question twice. I think he's going to end up doing it. I think he just doesn't want to say it. And I kind of get it. It's an election year and a little enrage his base. Like I get why he's not saying it. I assume they still have to talk him into it. It's like we're watching Trump learn how to be a normal fucking human being one day at a time. He's not doing very well. No, he's not. Oh yeah, the Fed should pay our bills directly, mortgage rent, forgive rent, make the land supply of mortgage companies, make the mortgage companies apply to the Feds. Don't know about landlords without mortgages. I guess they have to apply directly for reasonable rent to the Fed. I don't know. Rental properties is just like I'm like, ugh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it should be as for-profit the way it is. I think it's out of control, and they're definitely building more housing than we need in some places, and they're not building enough houses where we need it, and that is like the big issue. And we're not improving existing houses. We just kind of like there's a lot of like we should probably give landlords money to make improvements to their houses, and then a subsidy for getting their house filled so they can charge less rent. And we need to lower the rental fees, even though they're getting like money from the government. I mean, I don't know how to do this. I would have to talk to more economists and figure it out. I'm sure we could figure it out, but it's not what I'm doing right now. What I am doing is drinking out of my Progressive Insider mug. That wasn't an awkward segue at all. So yeah, so there's still a lot of question about how the convention's still going to go on. There's still a lot of question about a lot of things. I think the deadline is today or tomorrow for requesting a ballot. Well, we'll see what happens to that. Wisconsin could get delayed, And their ballots, by the way, the final count, like the judge ruled that honestly, this might have changed while we're doing this live stream. The judge ruled that the final tally couldn't be released till like the 16th because they had to accept ballots until then or something. I'm a little unclear again on the order, but that was the general idea. It's going to change again anyway, so that's why people are like, Don, you're really not keeping track of this stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's you learn a new thing. It's different in 20 minutes. That's how, like, I'm doing 3 shows a day right now. I did an interview this morning. We did a show in the afternoon. I'm doing this right now, and honestly, the situation has changed since I got up for each one. So, and that's just kind of how this keeps going. I mean, I'll be honest, it's kind of gratifying for doing this live stream for so long, and now there's actually some offense, everyone. But this is like we got a worldwide contagion. We're in the middle of a primary. The neoliberals are trying to save capitalism while the Republicans are abandoning it. It's very confusing. It's a very confusing time. So yeah, and I don't think there's a way we're going to come out of this without canceling student debt. We're not going to, like Fannie Mae and Fannie whatever the other one, Fannie Mac. I can never remember. The major loan companies, they can wipe away most of the debt. These third-party debt owners, they can get wiped out, and this is just like we can walk away from this with like the society that it should be. We can get rid of for-profit prisons. We can get rid of redlining communities. We can get rid of so many things right now if we make the right push. So I don't know, Elizabeth, which one you're talking about. If you're talking about Wisconsin, if they moved it since I started my live stream, that's possible. Yeah, the DNC moved the convention to August. So if you guys want to know a little bit of strategy about the DNC moving the convention to August, it's incredibly good for us. So we're not really fighting the DNC exactly. Everyone keeps saying, oh, the DNC, the DNC, the DNC. But we're actually fighting the neoliberals. And the neoliberals control a good swath of the DNC, but not a majority and not all of it. Certainly not all of it. So the point is that the neoliberals are like the real problem. And so there's a lot of talk about trying to bring back superdelegates, and they can't do that. We've been over that like tons and tons of times. You got to do meeting. It's very hard. Could do it, though. You could do it. And I'm not sure that bringing back superdelegates would actually help Joe Biden right now, to be honest with you. But point is that the neoliberals have been trying to figure out how they can control this nomination since the moment the rule passed. I was standing next to a chair and a couple DNC members, and a random guy walked up and said, it doesn't even matter that they did this, we're just going to undo it at the convention. So that's always been their plan. Having the meetings, having all that stuff, doing it that way, very hard. But it's been kind of watching this plan unravel. And they also realized, I was explaining, how hard it would be to do it at the convention. Because at the convention, it'd be very, very hard. Just because everyone would be watching. You can't just pull that off in front of everyone. You have to do it like in the dark while everyone's looking the other way. And no one is. So that's why they pulled off a lot of stuff in 2015, because no one cared. No one was paying attention. Now we're all paying attention. Thank you, Bernie. So when it comes to what their neoliberal plan was, there's a lot of talk over the vacancy rule. And there's a vacancy rule that allows the DNC to replace anyone that they leave the role. Once they're the nominee, post-convention, you can refill that spot with another person. It's very hard to get the public to do it, or public to accept a new candidate of someone who wasn't in the primary. It's not impossible, very hard. Now, for example, if Bernie dropped out right now, they would then be able to, and this is the real reason they're trying to get Bernie to drop out. I'm going to break it down right now. If they were able to get Bernie to drop out right now, they would have Biden fall back into the role we're already seeing him in, where he's kind of in the back door. And they would have someone like Cuomo suddenly get like tons of national attention. Some other candidate that they thought was a strong enough, dominating white man who could come in and tell everyone they were going to be safe. And that was kind of their plan. If Bernie dropped out, those two people would be in the forefront. They'd get the leadership from Cuomo. They'd make it through to the convention because none of this shit would matter anymore. The convention would happen. Biden would look at the balloons and be like, oh my fucking God. And then like a week later, they would Dave him. And he would base the movie Dave. It's a good movie. And basically be able to say, oh, well, Biden, clearly wasn't all right, or something happened, or COVID-19, or who knows. and they can boom slide this person in. But see, the thing is they need like 6 months to pull that off. You can't pull it off in 3. I mean, you could, but it'd be ugly. And 2 is really bad. 2 is like it's like the holy hand grenade of you can't. No, 2 is too far. You can't do that. So that's why they're trying to get Bernie to drop out right now, is because they want to start sliding in that other. And if you've noticed, they're already doing it with Cuomo. And there's talk of Cuomo, then suddenly Cuomo's in the press, Cuomo's on the TV, he's doing all this stuff. Suddenly, news. But I mean, New York news is national news, and I don't want to downplay what is happening in New York. It is truly tragic, especially in New York City. It is exceptionally tragic. But it is a real moment of like they were setting up this playbook of how would you do this, and then all we had to do to fuck that up was just get the primaries delayed and stay in the race, because the primary is happening no matter what. So there's literally no reason to drop out. Not to mention, it's bad for fundraising for that. I mean, people who hate Trump aren't gonna like wait to donate to Biden until primaries over. Like, they're capped out. You don't. And that was the other thing. They released this thing about how people can start donating for the general election now. People already were. They are. And the thing is, the only reason they weren't already, and they only donated in that cap for the primary, is because they were like, well, we'll see what happens. And now they're like, oh yeah, don't forget, you guys can donate again. And they're like, oh shit. And that's why now they're doing the most ridiculous event I've ever seen in my life. A $2,800 live stream with a $25,000 buy-in, which is they're like, oh no, you're bundling. No, you're writing a check for 25 grand. And I don't know how that works. I mean, I assume it's getting divided between a bunch of groups, but they'll divide it all for you. Point is, it's the most ridiculous bullshit I've ever seen. It's unbelievable and insulting and just hurtful. So they would have to do that before the DNC. So the point is that by moving the thing back to August, right? So it's August 16th to 20th, right? That's August to, hopefully I remember the month, September, October and a half. That's 2.5 months from August, the end of the DNC convention, until the general election. You cannot get the public to align trust to a new candidate who wasn't in the primary. Not to mention, even people who don't like Bernie will be like, but Bernie was there the whole time. And then it becomes this slide on democracy. Because even if it's public trust. And that's what the whole superdelegate reform was about. That's what all this stuff I've been talking about this whole time. Is that the party, people are like, oh, we need to sue the DNC. No, you freaking morons. That's not how parties work. Parties work on public trust. So if you sit here and have a legitimate reason that they're violating the public's trust, don't go on about some emotional horseshit when you have a perfectly good, exactly what people want to hear technical reason. The technical truth is always the best truth. Unless you're like running a political campaign and an emotional truth, it's very backwards in politics. The point is that when you're trying to get something changed, you got to go at it the right way. So when you're being an activist, you got to use technical truth. When you're a candidate, use emotional truth. And when you're an activist candidate, you just do whatever works. Try to win. Just win. Anyways, I cannot. Oh, I get macaroni and cheese. A little pre-show for what this looks like when I'm done. So there's no real way to slip a candidate in, and that really puts a hindrance in the neoliberal plan. Putting the primaries back. So now everyone's asking, well, can we move the June 9th deadline? And I don't know. Okay, so and I explained this before, the win number, for example, is not an arbitrary number. It's an equation of available seats, because you could gain seats in 2018, which we did. So by gaining seats in 2018, after the rule was written, basically the rule, the win number has to be on like a sliding scale. And that's why then the win number is 1990 or 1991. The win number is actually 1990.5, because there are an odd amount of delegates abroad. Well, actually, because of delegates abroad and how they went, and because Bernie got the odd number, his win number is less than Biden's now. That's kind of fun. I don't know if it's half a delegate, even though it's still +1. So in this instance, a half delegate is still a full delegate. I believe that's how it works. No, you can't have my macaroni and cheese. You're very cute. There's a dog, as you know. So the June 9th deadline, though, isn't tied up like that. It isn't like, oh, well, we add dates or move dates and it has to be 30 days before the convention. I don't think. If it is, I feel like they would have released a memo about that already. But I haven't seen that, so I don't know. I just don't know. I've been asking people to look. I don't generally. I mean, I do look in the rules and go through rules, but I generally people go through the rules all the time. They fact check. Like I hear a thing, we see a thing in action, and then we go fact check it. And usually other people fact check this. I'm actually doing these a lot now. So feel free to double down on or go against what I'm saying. Don't let me double down on something that's not true. So yeah, so I think that when we talk about the DNC moving, I think it's good for us. I think it's good for the thing. I think it makes it harder to do that. I think that they were trying to shuffle stuff and they can't, and I think they're starting to realize the plan is coming apart. And I think that the 51 state party chair signing that document says a lot about where they want the party to go because they want the primaries to happen. They want the primaries to happen safely. And I just think that says a lot. I think that says a lot because it would be real easy to say, oh no, you should just do whatever, which is what they were saying a couple months ago. I don't know which 6 chairs didn't sign it, but just a couple months ago, they were basically saying, oh no, it's safe to vote, everyone should go vote. No, it's not safe to vote. It's not safe at all. So it's nice to see that shift, and I think it speaks a lot. I think I've said that like 9 times, so I'll stop. That and the state party chairs, not all of them are dicks. They are all trying to be good people in their own way. It's not like the 2016 chairs who were like Roberta Lang. I mean, there are some of them, of course. I'm sure we're going to see examples, but no, not like that. At least that was really bad. Did a lot of videos on that are really good. If you guys want to see it about the chair and whether or not it got thrown, spoilers, it didn't. So, hey, guys, we're doing all this stuff in Progressive Insider. We got these shirts. This is our Patreon shirt right now. So, if you become a Patreon donor for a certain amount, we send you this shirt. And it has this, and it has this logo, and I don't know what's up with the pirate thing. My wife keeps looking at all our stuff and picking holes in it. That's what they do. Uh, she looked at this, she's like, but you're not a pirate. And I was like, Yar? Um, So we're getting some stuff together. It's slowly happening, fixing things, writing it down, getting our show on. I think. Oh, okay, that's a good question. Okay, so yeah, so check us out. Check out the other things. I don't know. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to plug things. Yeah, we're gonna get it so it reads that way. I know it's what everyone instantly thinks or says or whatever. Anyways, so what's the next move after Wisconsin? Well, other elections have already moved to vote. Wisconsin is that it had in-person voting. Other states already full VBM. So Wyoming, Alaska, Hawaii. Hawaii's registration deadline is tomorrow. Their election isn't due for a while. They might move that deadline, but I don't think they're going to. So when we're talking about Wisconsin, we're looking past it. We got Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico may not get moved, but it could. It has the reasoning to. Ohio is almost certainly going to happen, but I'm not sure in what capacity at the moment. That could also get reworked. See, the thing is that here's the problem: is that okay? So we know. Just before I get into what's really bad is about to go on, that we know that Wyoming, Alaska, and Hawaii deadlines are happening. So those need to stay focused. We go from Wisconsin straight into those and like one day turnaround. Literally, we have no time to just get between it. And we're just getting people to get registered and request a ballot in most of these places, and check out how they're doing. They are going to be calls, but the thing is that they're talking about the peak being in mid to late April. So we're not going to see it get real bad until like the 24th, which is right around the time Ohio is supposed to happen. Let's see, do I have it up here? Let's see. Okay, hang on, I'm getting a date real fast. It actually matters a lot right now. I can't just like guess at this. So they're talking about peak around the 20th, 24th, which is going to make 420 just the worst. But we are looking at Alaska, Wisconsin, Wyoming. So Wisconsin, yeah, Wisconsin has April 13th as the date now. So I guess Wisconsin moved a week? I don't know how to interpret this right now. I know that the ballots are until the 16th. This says April 13th for Wisconsin, and I thought it was on the. So I'm not sure. Um, so I think it's just transitioning directly into. Sorry, I looked ridiculous. I saw my feed as I was watching myself look at it. I was like, oh, that's how I look when I look at my computer. I need to get a more distinguished look. So Puerto Rico, Ohio, that's going to happen real fast. There's like 5, 6 states going on right away, and then we got 5 states in May, and then June 2nd. I mean, there's like 10 states left, and then we have Super Tuesday on June 2nd, and then we'll figure out what's going on with the things. I mean, use the Wikipedia for the 2020 primaries. It has everything you need on it. Yeah, Ohio's 428. Yeah, but it has Wisconsin moved on this Wikipedia date. They've already moved Wisconsin to the 13th. And I was really under the impression that Wisconsin is Tuesday. They've been talking about moving, and I'm wondering if it moved while I'm doing this live stream. Hang on a second. Let's do it. Let's see what we get. Okay, they moved it. Hang on. They are postponed. Is it done? No, they're trying. I mean, the shutdown of the districts is ridiculous. Like, I don't know if you've seen it, but they're shutting down like 180 or 150 precincts down to 8. I mean, that's just crazy. So they're calling a special session. Okay, here we go. They're doing it tomorrow. He's calling a special session tomorrow to ask lawmakers to take up the bill, create an all-mail election, require clerks to send absentee ballots to every registered voter, and extend the time to return those ballots from mid-April to late May. So, I guess after tomorrow we're gonna know what's going on there. That's pretty intense, and it's just going to be a quick rotation. We got to go. We got to straight up go right to these other states and start focusing on that because that looks like it's going. We'll see. I mean, that might not go through, but if it doesn't go through and they have elections, I'm gonna pretty much argue that Wisconsin, anyone holding non-mail ballots at this moment, non-all mail ballots. Also, I like the standard of sending everyone a ballot, registered voters. Um, Okay, that's where the date comes from. All right, thank you. Elizabeth has earlier on Friday, a federal judge extended the deadline for absentee ballots to be returned, ensuring that Wisconsin's primary results is to be released, are not to be released until at least April 13th, 6 days after the state's election is held, and that's why the Wikipedia shows April 13th, because that's when we should expect results from it. Until that changes. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, we're on the same page. So I guess we're going to be watching for that tomorrow. I guess I'll do some more coverage of that. We'll talk about what's going on there. But we got Wisconsin, and then we have Hawaii. So, I mean, we should almost start calling Hawaii right away and make sure that, let's see if Hawaii changed the registration deadline. I need to focus on looking more distinguishable. I type, apparently. No, they haven't moved it. No. So, here we go. I think I'm done. I don't really have CNN. I don't really think I have too much else to say. I've explained a lot. It's a lot of stuff I've already covered. Um, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. If you have any more, I'll give you a couple. But I think we're looking at a long haul here and a lot of emotional damage trying to get Bernie out before he should. There's just going to be a lot of underhanded stuff. We have to really prepare ourselves. and we also have to make sure we're getting out the vote in all these places. So use this this calendar, as like your Bible. It goes until it's from April 10th to June 23rd, and we have to be prepared. It's also going to be the bulk of the COVID crisis. So keep that in mind. So I think that's another good reason to keep the campaign going and open is we need to be offering COVID relief wherever we can. There's major lists I've been sharing about COVID relief options in a bunch of different states. So please feel free to grab it and use it and get people help because that's why the campaign people are like, oh, why haven't you dropped out? Well, we're transforming the campaign like we want to transform the party and the country to be relief for Americans in a crisis. So, we're basically in a wartime. Acts of God and whatnot. So, I'm done. You guys are great. If you like my stuff and you feel like donating, I really appreciate that. It's been a little slow, but I did hit my deadline. I guess that's good news. Other than that, the shirts are on Progressive Insider's Patreon, and the cups too. Apparently, they're the only places you can get them right now because we're having some sort of tax and shipping issue with the store for a minute. Yeah, I know the cup is made in China. We're working that out too. Okay, all right, guys. But the shirts are made in America. So one thing at a time. That's it. I'm done.